It's been about a week since I was out here working on the truck. I had a whole bunch of parts that I had to order and then wait for them to show up. You know how that goes. I don't have everything that I need yet, but I have enough stuff to keep pushing forward on the fuel tank. So I've got a new strap. I need to attach it down here and kind of wrap it around the tank and see what I need to do to attach it to this new cross member that I made. I know it needs to be shorter because this is going to be mounted a little bit lower, and I'm going to have to maybe weld some kind of a tab or something like that. So I'm going to figure that out next and get this fuel tank done so I can get this little tie-down strap off here, because that's not very safe. That's just temporary. But once this is done, the fuel tank is basically fully mounted. There's still some other things I got to replace on it, but at least that part is done, and then I can finish welding up some other things that I need to fix. Well, here's my sexy new fuel tank strap, this ST318. It comes in a raw finish, which is beneficial for me. I don't have to grind any paint or anything off to cut and weld on it. This original one here from 2003, it's got 250,000 or so miles on it. You can see it's in pretty rough shape. This is the pin that I had to cut to get it out of the original cross member. Because of that, I ordered a new pin from Toyota. That's going to go in here. This is the end that I need to modify to fit the cross member. Once I'm done with that, I will paint this thing up, and then I can transfer this insulator over. It's not damaged or anything. It just needs to be cleaned up and then bonded on here. That'll protect the bottom of the tank. I put a block of wood and scissor jack under my fuel tank to hold it snug up against this cross member. Then I was able to get that tie-down strap out of the way and bolt down the new fuel tank strap to the frame over there. I went to the old cross member and I measured from the frame rail over to the pin that holds the strap. It's about 17¼ inches. So I made a mark on my new cross member right here. So if I pull this strap up into place, it does seem pretty happy right there. That's going to be the area I want to target for the new pin mount down below. Now, it would be pretty simple for me just to notch a hole in the bottom of this tube, slide the strap up in there, drill and pin it. I could probably have that done in maybe 10 minutes. But I just don't like the idea of having a hole in the bottom of this tube that would allow dirt and water to fill this thing up over time. Start having flashbacks to this Tacoma frame and all the trouble that caused. I'd rather have this thing closed up and mount something down here. So after looking this over, two things came to mind. One would be reforming the end of this just shorter. To do that, I think there's only enough material on here that I'd have to cut this, grind these spot welds out, and then measure it just right so that I could wrap it maybe around like a steel dowel, clamp it onto itself, spot weld it back together. It's kind of complicated. I don't even know if I could pull it off without trying it on a scrap piece of steel so that I don't junk this thing. I don't want to have to buy another strap because I screwed it up. So I did find a scrap piece of steel. This is 16th inch, 62 thou, thick steel. So I'm going to try it just to see if I can even make it happen. If it's promising, I might go forward with that idea. But a simpler backup plan for me is just to cut it down lower, slide it down to whatever position it needs to be in, and then clamp it and spot weld it back to itself. So that would definitely work as well. So that's going to be my backup plan in case I can't do option one. It turns out this strap is a lot tougher than I thought. I took another piece of steel, very similar thickness and width, and I tried a couple different ways of bending it. And it turns out that it's going to take something pretty rigid to make this tight of a loop. I thought about making a press brake die or fabricating a tool that I could bend form this tight loop. And it has to be pretty stout. It's something that I didn't want to put a lot of time into to make this one little part. So I pulled the plug on it and I decided I'm going to go with my other option, and that's going to be to cut this down and lap it over itself and spot weld it kind of like it is here. But this is a non-adjustable strap. it bolts on this side and then it hangs over here. So when it's in place, it needs to be tightened down under just enough compression on the tank that it doesn't crush it, but also that it's not gonna be loose and rattle. So since that's a little bit more crucial of that, you know, the mounting, I decided I'm gonna save this for last, and I need to focus on getting my mount here, since that one's gonna be factory on this side of the frame. This side, I'm gonna fabricate something. I was gonna maybe make some ears or something and weld them in down there, but I found this piece of rectangular tube I had in my garage, and this thing fits perfectly in here. So that's gonna save me a whole bunch of time. I'm gonna make a template so I can whittle a chunk out of this, and then drill a hole in it and get it mounted right in this area so I can pin it. And then I'll cut that strap to whatever length that fits it properly. That'll do. This tank is done. It is fully mounted to the truck now. I was happy with the amount of tension I had on the strap, so I took my welder and fully welded this bracket on to the cross member. The original, the OEM pin that I bought to replace it over here was a little long, since this is a narrower cross member than the factory one. So I did shorten it and drill the new center pin hole for the retaining clip, so that's installed now. The one thing I still want to do with this tank is to strip the little bit of service rust off it. It's actually still very solid. I think I get it cleaned up and recoated, it's going to look like brand new, which is great because these tanks are pricey. I think they're $700 or so from Toyota. The aftermarkets are also quite expensive. All it really needs is new seals and a fresh coat of paint. I have some seals, they did show up. This is the one for the fuel pump and sending unit here. There's also one in here for the evap vapor check valve, which is inside of the stainless piece. This hose routes it over to the charcoal canister to capture those vapors. And finally, there is this seal, which goes under the fuel fill check valve. This one's really important when you're filling your tank. It as the liquid displaces the air inside the tank, it flows through this tube, the charcoal canister, and then out a fresh air vent under the cap here on the filler neck. So speaking of filler neck, that's also in the box too. This showed up. I'm replacing this one. It's got quite a bit of rust, especially on these smaller tubes. It's not going to make it much longer. So all this stuff will be replaced. And I do plan to do a diesel swap with this truck after all this other work is done. So I'm not concerned with even mounting the charcoal canister, but I do want to make sure I maintain the function of the fuel vent so that it does fill properly. All I really think I need to do is to get this fresh air vent to vent up through the filler neck. That's my plan. So bypass the charcoal canister, route it up and out this tube somehow, and that should solve my venting issues there. That's about all I have for this video because I'm still waiting on parts to finish the rest of the stuff in the back of the truck. That stuff should be coming very soon, so I can get going on that. That's going to conclude this video. Hope you guys liked it. Stay tuned for the next one.